Welcome to today's explainer. We're looking at what might literally be the ultimate business model, a system where war isn't just a global tragedy but a highly lucrative transaction. We're going to decode the rather cynical corporate playbook of global conflict. It's a world where geopolitical chaos is essentially managed like a steady revenue stream, and where, believe it or not, peace is actually viewed as a major threat to the bottom line.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We are exploring the brilliant and frankly unsettling new book by Natalie G. Turner called Bomb, Blame, and Bank: Bloodshed, Bargains, and Big Bucks. The core thesis here is just profound. Turner argues that what looks like a chaotic, heartbreaking tragedy on the ground is actually a carefully orchestrated profit scheme. While soldiers are marching and everyday citizens are panicking, boardrooms are quietly calculating their profit margins. So let's look at exactly how this hidden economic machinery really operates.
So here is the agenda for our corporate seminar today, decoding how this chaos is engineered step by step. We'll start with the war business model, then move into manufacturing the spark. Next up is the theater of destruction, followed by controlling the narrative, and we'll wrap up with monetizing the chaos. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The war business model.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the massive gap between what we're told and what the actual financial ledgers show. Defense contractors, lobbyists, and politicians treat global conflict like a lucrative, never-ending subscription model. To the public, conflict is completely sold using emotional, patriotic language. We hear words like defense, peacekeeping, national pride, and that acts as a psychological shield, right? It makes it almost impossible to question these billion-dollar budgets without sounding unpatriotic. But the private reality behind closed doors? It's vastly different. The vocabulary there is cold and calculated. They're talking about profit margins, resource capture, and strategic escalation. The flag is literally just the packaging for the product.
Turner summarizes the whole thing perfectly, saying, "War is a transaction disguised as tragedy." It really highlights the sheer absurdity of the modern defense industry. Because think about it, investors and markets don't exactly pop champagne for peace treaties. Actually, defense stocks often dip when peace is announced. Ongoing stalemates are significantly better for business. As long as a threat exists out there, the funding just keeps flowing. It's a subscription model where governments are basically paying monthly for weapons, intelligence, and ongoing maintenance.
Section 2. Manufacturing the spark.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the marketing department of war actually works. If war is the ultimate product, it needs a team to ensure demand is artificially generated. It relies on 3 exact steps to manufacture a conflict before the very first shot is even fired. It starts with step 1, sell fear. Fear totally bypasses reason and creates this urgent, inescapable demand for protection. Then comes step 2, stage the spark. Now this could be a staged provocation, a wildly magnified border dispute, or even a false flag, which is essentially an attack disguised to look like the enemy did it. It honestly doesn't even matter if it's entirely real, it just has to feel real. Finally, step 3, shift the blame. You redirect all that outrage toward the enemy, ensuring the public is furious and literally begging for retaliation.
It's a really tough pill to swallow, but economically, it makes perfect sense. Peace just doesn't make headlines. Peace demands patience, quiet dialogue, and compromise. There are 0 narrative hooks in a successful diplomatic treaty. Fear, on the other hand, fear is the marketing department. Fear creates urgency, it drives massive media ratings, and it completely kills public debate. A public that is fully saturated in fear will happily write a blank check for their own perceived safety.
Section 3. The theater of destruction. Let's transition over to the battlefield itself, where you'll see military strikes frequently designed as theatrical PR, rather than, actual strategic wins. Look at the financial absurdity here. We regularly see millions of dollars spent just to flatten an empty warehouse. It's got to be the most expensive demolition job in history. Turner points out that targeting empty symbols, so like abandoned buildings or defunct factories, delivers these dramatic, fiery visuals without the burden of any real consequences. You drop a multi-million-dollar smart bomb on a strategically useless target simply to generate a gripping headline. It's destruction that is carefully calibrated strictly for the evening news.
These useless strikes are essentially the PR of explosions, and they serve some highly calculated purposes. They show massive power to the world without taking on any real strategic risk. They distract domestic audiences from internal political failures at home. They act as free live-action advertising to showcase shiny new weapons for future international buyers. And maybe most importantly, they guarantee a brand new invoice. Every single bomb dropped has to be replaced, which keeps the supply chain moving and the revenue flowing.
Moving right along to Section 4. Controlling the narrative.
Okay, so once the product is launched and the explosions are safely on film, the next critical step is tightly managing public perception. Sympathy is won through highly calculated media strategies. We see selective footage of suffering broadcast on a continuous loop, the emotional framing of victims, the deliberate omission of literally any historical context that might explain the tension, and always, without fail, blaming the enemy for the escalation. Public relations experts manage this exactly like a corporate campaign, turning raw human emotion and collateral damage into a moral justification for extending the conflict and, you guessed it, expanding those defense budgets.
So the crucial point is how language is completely manipulated to play the defense card. When the enemy acts, it's immediately labeled unprovoked aggression. But when our side does the exact same thing, well, suddenly it's framed as reluctant defense. Any retaliation is painted as a righteous necessity. And this is genius because it effectively silences dissent. I mean, who's going to argue against defending themselves, right? It maintains public support and keeps that funding pipeline wide open.
Finally, Section 5. Monetizing the chaos.
This is where the real, reoccurring money is made right out of the ruins. Turner writes, "Revenge is raw emotion, revenue is calculated strategy." The raw anger of the public literally becomes the fuel for a massive economic engine. Retaliation is stretched out into a continuous business model. Every single strike triggers new purchase orders for weapons, new logistics contracts, and massive, massive spending. The public genuinely thinks they are demanding justice, but what they are actually doing is fueling a surge in stock prices for defense contractors right inside their own 401ks.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an endless, recurring revenue cycle. It's a three-step profit machine. 1. Destroy the infrastructure during the conflict. 2. Secure global loans from NGOs and the International Monetary Fund, basically mortgaging the destroyed nation's future under the emotional guise of international relief. 3. Award highly lucrative rebuilding contracts to the exact same corporate networks that supplied the weapons in the very first place. It's wild. They profit from the destruction, and then they turn around and profit from the concrete used to rebuild it all.
Which brings us to a final, really provocative question. Are we actually paying for national security? Or are we simply funding a perpetual profit machine? Once you understand this corporate playbook, it completely changes how you interpret every single geopolitical headline. You start to see the hidden ledger behind the tragedy, and you really have to start asking yourself about the true hidden cost of your tax dollars.
If you want to fully expose the hidden economic machinery behind global conflicts and truly understand the matrix we are living in, you need to read the source material for today's explainer. Read Bomb, Blame, and Bank by Natalie G. Turner. It is a phenomenal, absolutely eye-opening book. Go get your copy right now by visiting https://mybooktwo.to/NC01069. Again, that's https://mybooktwo.to/NC01069. Thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, stay curious.